Hey you, my name is Emily, the Drone Angel, and welcome to your one-stop shop for everything drone related. Today I'm going to be talking about the necessity of having a pre-flight checklist as a drone pilot with an easy step-by-step guide. But before we get into it, please take a moment and hit subscribe so you're notified when new videos go up. And with that being said, let's go on a little flight at the wedge because the waves are firing. That was so much fun. Let's get started. Now, what is a pre-flight checklist? It's essentially a to-do list or routine that assures accuracy in carrying out a proper flight. It reduces the failure of crashing. It's a bit repetitive, but necessary if you want to make sure you don't make any mistake while flying. I didn't think much about a pre-flight checklist until I forgot one while droning the most incredible sunrise in Fiji. My friends and I were extremely tired from the night before. We were basically traveling and avoiding this huge cyclone hitting some nearby islands. And when we got to Fiji, we were just so excited to arrive and that the weather was clear that I got up super early and I knew I wanted to drone the sunrise. I sprinted out with all my gear to the specific spot about half a mile away from where we were staying. And I knew I wanted to drone somewhere where the noise of my drone wouldn't bother people. So I chose a specific spot, set up my drone, put my propellers on, turned on my remote, turned on my drone, made sure that everything was set with my filter and all my settings were good to go. And then when I flew up, the sky just lit up. It was absolutely gorgeous. I knew it was going to be the shot. And then I looked down and I noticed on my remote that I didn't have a memory card in my drone. So safe to say, I learned my lesson that I always want to take my time, get up earlier, and go through my pre-flight checklist. I prefer a more detailed checklist that includes action items taken the day before the flight and the day of. Why? I find it really easy to get excited in the heat of the moment while you're flying, especially if you're around friends, and forget to check off all these important boxes. I'll provide some basic guidelines that I have on my own checklist, and you can tailor it to fit your own model of drone. Before you get too excited, list action items that you plan to take the day before the flight. Check the weather using apps like the UAV Forecast and Windy app. I'll go into more detail about these apps in a future video, but they are worth checking out. Did you check to see that you're flying legally and not near an airport? Use apps like Before You Fly and Air Map to make sure it's safe to fly. You might be flying in a controlled airspace and not even know it. You must submit a request to get authorization to fly in a controlled airspace near airports through Drone Zone or Low Altitude Authorization and Notification Capability, also known as LAANC. I know, that's a mouthful. Your drone and remote have to be on in order to update the firmware. Why is it important to do this? Firmware updates fix and solve software bugs and add new features to your drone, gimbal, and remote. You can update your Phantom or Mavic using the DJI Assistant or DJI Go app. It is really easy to update your Phantom 4 Pro remote controller using the DJI Go app. Make sure your drone, phone, and remote are fully charged because some updates take up to 30 to 45 minutes. I highly recommend updating your DJI apps first, followed by your remote and then your drone. First, connect to the Wi-Fi. Then go to the DJI Go app. It will notify you if you need an update at the top of the screen in the app. Click Update Now and download. It's gonna ask you to restart your device, so make sure you turn off your drone first and then turn off your remote. And then when you restart your drone, you wanna start your remote first and then your drone. You wanna make sure your batteries and remote are fully charged. It's simple but easy to forget. Buy a multi-charger if you don't want to worry about charging your batteries and you just want them to be on the charger hub. I have a link to one that I use below. Next, make sure that your SD card is formatted. Nothing is worse when you show up at a site, fly your drone up, and realize that your memory card is full because you forgot to dump the footage from the previous shoot. I don't know if you've been there, but I've been there several times and I kick myself each time I do it. Make it a habit to dump the footage the day that you shoot something. And then right after you dump that footage, format your card. If I'm shooting something more complex with ground and aerial perspectives, I find it nice to think out my shots prior with a shot list. First, think of the storyline that you want to share. Write down angles that you want to capture, including wide shots, mid-range shots, and close-ups. List intelligent modes that you plan to use, and then assess what time of day you plan to shoot them based on the shot and based on your storyline. Flight route and obstacles reviewed. If you can, location scout the site before you fly. Assess the obstacles that might be in your flight path. If you can't get there early, try using apps like Google Earth, which can help you determine if it's a congested area and if you have to watch out for trees and buildings. Knowing the geography will help you determine if the shots are doable. NOTAMs stand for Notice to Airmen. They are informational advisories, not laws, that are filed with the FAA. They give pilot operators notice of any potential hazards that could affect their flight. All NOTAM publications can be accessed at the FAA website. Now, I know most drone pilots don't find it necessary to check NOTAMs, but you don't want to show up at a job about to fly up and then find out that there's a temporary flight restriction because of an air show. Don't be that person. Make it a habit to always check NOTAMs before you fly. List action items taken right before the flight. Always make sure your batteries are inserted all the way until you hear that click. Why? If you're flying and it's not in all the way, it can potentially pop out, causing your drone to fall out of the sky. At that point, your remote is completely useless. Take time to inspect your battery, drone, and remote for any cracks. I was capturing content for the Belize Tourism Board with this group of influencers, and we were about to get photos of the most incredible sunset. There was a photographer there that needed a battery, and I had one drone battery left in my bag, but it had a crack on the corner of it. I warned him that I never flew with it because I was afraid that something might happen, like it might pop out of the drone. Well, he decided to risk it. He flew his drone up, and unfortunately, I'm assuming the battery might have popped out a little bit because the drone fell right out of the sky. Based on this experience, I will never fly if there's a crack on my battery or drone because it's just not worth it. Now that it's the day of the flight, you want to double check the weather and wind speed. Double check that you're clear of all overhead obstructions. When you arrive to a location, take a moment and assess the terrain. Are there power lines or trees near you? Look around you and know what to expect before you fly. When I fly, I always take off the gimbal guard and the lens cap before I put on the propellers. If you put on the propellers too quickly, you risk your drone crashing because they could potentially pop off. Take the propellers with the black centerpiece and place them with the motors with the black indicator. Look for the spring load when you put them on and then press down and twist counterclockwise to lock it in. Take the propellers with the silver centerpiece. Again, feel for the spring when putting them on and then press down and twist them on the silver indicator clockwise. They should pop on and off like the top of a medicine bottle. I personally like to check to see if they are secure by just lightly tapping underneath them. Next, make sure your SD card is inserted in the aircraft. You don't want to pull an Emily and Fiji moment. You always want to make sure the memory card is in the drone. Now it's time to fly. Turn on the remote by pushing the left button once quickly and then a second time longer. You will know it's turned on when you hear that beep. Similar to the remote, turn on the drone by pressing the button on the battery quickly once and then again a few seconds longer. Check that your drone and remote are properly connected. Position your antenna up towards the sky. Optimal position for your antenna on the RC would be as close to 90 degrees as possible for the best possible signal. You want to make sure that your antennas aren't crossed like this because that cuts off the band of transmission from your remote to your drone. Some of my clients like to calibrate their compass before every single flight. Personally, I find it unnecessary unless I've been moving my drone around a lot or I've been flying off metal objects such as a parking garage, a boat, or a car. In that case, my calibration might be messed with and it's important to calibrate it. But here's a quick guide to check if you need to do it. When you start the drone, do your motor spin easily like this? Once your remote and drone are on, you can check to see if your home point is identified here. Try to fly when there are 8 to 10 satellites that are recognized by your drone. You can check the number of satellites here. As a drone owner, it is very easy to get carried away while flying. If you lose concentration, you have the potential to fly backwards, forwards, or sideways into an object. Each drone will have slight differences on what to do once an object is detected. The DJI Phantom 4 Pro obstacle avoidance system has 5 directions of obstacle sensing and 4 directions of obstacle avoidance. The Mavic 2 has obstacle detection on all 6 sides of the drone. It's important to check to see if your sensors are on. If you have sensors on your drone, I highly suggest turning them on, especially if you're new to flying or you're flying at a new location. There are rare cases when you have to turn off the sensors before you fly. For example, if you are flying off a boat over dolphins and whales, you have to turn them off when you're hand launching the drone. I'll explain how to do this and why in a future video. Once you launch your drone, hover at 15 feet for about 20 seconds while you continue to check the settings and monitor the drone performance. Then fly up and have a fun and safe flight. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, the biggest compliment for me is if you could share it with someone else that would also enjoy it. Of course, hit subscribe if you want to stay up to date on my new videos. And feel free to comment below if you have any drone-related questions or stories to tell. I also do personal educational consulting and hands-on workshops where I teach you how to fly over whales. More information is on my website and in the links below. See you in the next video.